Okay, so this afternoon we are going to talk about a very important type of data in programming or any other language, and in this case it's what's known as a Python string. So strings are very, very popular in Python and they have a lot of uses. In a nutshell, basically what we mean by a string is just texts like words or names of people and stuff like that. So what you're going to do is that we'll learn how to create a string. Then after creating that particular string, we're also going to learn how to access a particular character in that string. Then we're also going to learn how to access multiple characters in a string. We'll learn how to find the length of a character, the length of a string. Then you also learn to check for membership to a string. Now this accessing a character in a string, accessing multiple characters from a string, finding the length of a string, and also membership, it sounds very similar to what we did with lists. The reason is because lists and strings are actually quite very similar. Okay, so strings are a kind of list, but they do not start with a square bracket or end with a square bracket. Instead, strings start and end with quotation marks. That's a difference, but most of the other things are the same. Okay, we are also going to learn how to change the case of a string. For example, how to make the first letter of the string a capital letter, or how to make the letters of a string into small letters, or how to make them all capital letters. Then you're also going to learn how to combine strings. So if you've got two strings, how do you combine them? Then we also learn how to add what are known as white spaces to a string. Basically, these are spaces, tabs, or end of line characters. Then we'll also learn how to remove these white spaces from a string. So basically, that is what our lesson looks like going ahead in front of us. So, what is a string? So basically, a string is a collection of characters, and these characters are enclosed inside quotation marks. The quotation marks you can use for a string can either be single quotation marks or they can be double quotation marks. So that's what basically a string is. It will be more clear as we try to do whatever it is you have to do. So here we create, how do you create a string? You can either use single quotation marks or you can use double quotation marks. Okay, so in this case, this is the string which we have here. This is a string. So this is actually a sentence which says this is a string. And this sentence is enclosed in quotation marks. So these quotation marks are what mark the beginning of a string and the end of a string. So if you're going to create a string using double quotation marks, so you need to start with double quotation marks, and you also need to end the string with double quotation marks. So you need to have matching quotation marks. If they're double, you start with a double quotation mark, then you end with a double quotation mark this side, like this. So if you run this, that's what you get. So it prints out this. The output is this is a string. You can also create a string using single quotation marks. For example, here, you start with a single quotation mark here, then you're ending with a single quotation mark there. This is also a string, like that. Sometimes you can have a combination of quotation marks. For example, you can start with some single quotation mark, like in this case, then inside you have some double quotation mark like that, then you end with a single quotation mark like that. The rule is very simple. If you start your string with single quotation marks, end it with single quotation marks. If you start your string with double quotation marks, then end that particular string with double quotation marks. So in this case, I told my friend Python is my favorite language. So this one is a quotation mark. This is a quotation, what the person said. But you start with a single quotation mark, you end with a single quotation mark. Everything inside a string, if you have constructed your string properly, is supposed to be read. So everything inside your string, if your string has been made nicely, it's supposed to come out read like this. So this one here, I told my friend Python is my favorite language, so that is also a string. Same applies here. You start out your string with a double quotation marks, you need to end it with a double quotation mark. So here, the language Python, so this is in single quotation marks inside, is named after Monty Python, not the snake. But of course, we use the snake as the mascot for the language Python. Okay, so again, very clear. If you start with double quotation marks, end your string with double quotation marks. That is the only way to make sure that everything inside the quotation marks is read. If you try to do otherwise, then you're going to end up with errors, as you have seen before. There. Then also here, one of Python's favorite strengths is its diverse and supportive community. So again, you're starting with a double quotation marks, you need to end with a double quotation mark this side. There is an apostrophe here, but that is also treated as a character which makes up that particular string. Are we clear on how you create a string? Any questions? You need to mark the beginning of a string and the end of a string with quotation marks. So if you start with single quotation marks, you need to end with single quotation marks. If you start with double quotation marks, you need to end with double quotation marks. Are we clear? Okay, so let's move on to the next bit. The other thing you can do is you can store a string in a variable. For example, this is a sentence. What we have here, it says, one of Python's strengths is its diverse and supportive community. So this string here, you can actually store it in a variable, and that variable is what you're going to call text. So the name of the variable is text this side, and the string we're trying to store is this one, which is on the right hand side. Like that. So this is the string we're trying to store in the variable text. When you do this, it makes it easy for you to handle the string, because you don't have to type it all over and get all over the place, because now you have stored it in a variable called text. If you print text, it gives you access to that particular string. The difference is, as you can see, we had the same string here. When you print text, the quotation marks are not printed out. So print kind of removes the quotation marks, the single quotation marks or double quotation marks, which you have like that. Okay. So that's what you can do. So if you have a string, you can save that string in a variable. You're not restricted to only saving a sentence. You can actually save a paragraph, or you can save a bunch of paragraphs, or you can save a chapter. That's up to you, depending on what you need to do. Okay, so the next thing is accessing a single character from a Python string. So for you to do this, you need to use what's known as an index, because the characters which make up a string have a particular position where they belong. And in Python, the index always starts from 0. So the first character in a string is given an index value of 0. Then the second one is given an index value of 1, and like that. And the last one, of course, we know that's given an index value of -1. So in this case, we print the string text again. So if you want to access the first character, which is this one here, the O, then you type the name of the variable holding the string. Then after that, followed by a bunch of square brackets. Then inside the square brackets, you put the position or the index of the element or of the character you want to access. So right now we want to access the first character in the string, and that first character is accessed using an index of 0. So that in that case, you access this. If you want to access the fifth character in the string text, that fifth character in the string text is accessed using an index of 4. So you start with text, that's the name of the variable containing the string, then followed by a bunch of square brackets, a pair of square brackets. Then inside the square brackets, you put the index or the position of the character you want to access. So in this case, the fifth character, which has got index 4, is the O, small o. If you want to access the fourth character, in this case, you have to use an index of 3. So it's going to be text, which is the name of the variable holding the string, then a pair of square brackets, then inside there you put the position or the index of what you want to access. So the fourth character, in this case, with index 3, is just a space character. So even in the space, Even a space is treated as a character in a string. If you want to access the 11th character in the string text, then you have to put the index 10 here. So the name of the variable holding that string, then the square brackets, and inside there you put in the name, you put in the index 10. If you want to access the last character, of course we know that you can always access the last character in a list or in a string by using the index -1. So in this case the last character is the full stop, as you can see where we printed here. When we printed there, the last character was a full stop. So if you want to access the last character, that's how you get it. So you can see that accessing a single character from a string is the same as what you do when you access a single element or a single item from a list. So in this case, strings and lists are similar that way. Are we clear? Are we clear on the accessing a single character from a string, a Python string? How it's done?
Yes, we are clear.
Okay. So now that we know how to access a single character from a string using an index, then you are also aware that when we looked at lists, we were able to access multiple characters, multiple items from a list using a slice. It also turns out that you can do the same here. You can access multiple characters from a string by using a slice, by slicing. So when you're slicing, you need to give a start index up to but less than the index where you want to end. So that last index, the end index, is going to be excluded in your slice. So again, we print our texts there. There is our text. So in this case, we want to access the word Python. So we want to access a string Python there. That's what we want to do. So I want to access Python from the string, from the variable texts. So if you look here, so Python is here. This is what we want to get. So we want to start with P all the way up to N. So if you start counting, where does it start? So the first one here, this is index 1. That's 1, 2, 3. Then there's a space here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So P is the 8th character, and that 8th character has got index 7. So our start point is index 7 here. Then all the way up to, so this is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we are going to end, we want to end at the, that's the 13th element, right? And that has got index number 12. However, we need to go up to here, 14th character, which has got index number 13. So you need to include the apostrophe. So you need to give the index of the apostrophe, which is 13th, but this 13 is going to be excluded because when you're doing a slice, you start from the 7 all the way up to but excluding 13. So when you do this, when you run this slice, this gives you Python. So this is how you would extract the word Python from our texts. This slice, which is Python, you can actually save it in a variable which we're going to call language here. So we know that this text, then square bracket 7, a slice from 7 all the way up to but excluding 13 gives us this string, which is Python. So we save this string Python in language like that. Then if you print out language, you get your Python back. This is exactly what we did with lists. So this is what is called a slice. Are we clear on this? How slices work? Okay, next we move on to how to find the length of a string. We also did a similar task on how to find the length of a list. So in this case, in that particular case, we used a function called length, and that is exactly the same function we are going to use also here. So we're going to use the length function. So finding the length of a Python string using the length function. So here, so what you do is you type length. It's a function, so it has got this open and closing parentheses. Then inside this parentheses, you put in the text or the variable whose length you want to find out. So in this case, we have got text, a variable text, which has got a certain string. So we want to find out how many characters does this text thing have. So if you run that, it shows you that actually text has got 66 characters. Same thing, if you do it with language, we stored something in the variable called language. So you say length, then inside this length, you give it language. When you run that, it tells you that actually the language, what is stored in language, has a length of 6 characters. Length can accept, here we have given length variables, the variable text which contains something in the variable language, but you can also actually just give it a string like this, which has not been saved in any variable. If you give it a string like that, it will still be able to work and tell you, oh, this thing has got 65 characters. You can do the same thing here, this, like that, but we don't encourage this. As much as it works, it is not being encouraged. You need to store your strings in appropriate variables. So in this case, maybe you could have created a variable called sentence, then we store in this thing, then after that, you work out the length. So always try to make sure if you've got a string or you've got a list of some kind, try to find an appropriate variable in which you can store the string or the list in question. Okay, so that's how you find the length of your string. Are we clear? Using the length function. So you said type length, then inside the parentheses you put in your variable which contains a string, or you actually put in the string itself. Is it clear? I did confirmation? Okay. All right. Next, we will check if a particular string, short string, or a particular letter is in a string. So that's now checking for membership to a string. Now, the same way we checked for membership when you're looking at lists, that's also the same way you check for membership when you're looking at strings. And the way we did that is by using a keyword called in. So to the left of in, you had something, then to the right of in, you had something. So whatever was on the value which was on the left, you wanted to check if that value was on the list which was on the right. So in this case, we're now looking at strings. So print out what text is. So in this case, you have got one of Python's strengths is its diverse and supportive community. So this string text has got a bunch of words in it. So what we want to do is we want to check if the word or the string community is a member of text. We want to check if the word community is in this thing here. As we can see, a quick just visual investigation here shows that community is at the end there. So what we expect when you do this, when you carry out this thing, we expect a true. So if community is in text, then you should get true. If it's not in text, then you should get false. Okay, so in this case, when you run it, it gives you true. Again, you are encouraged to save things like texts, strings. You're encouraged to save your strings in a variable. So in this case, what you're going to do much better is you're going to save community in a variable called substring, like that. Then we print out substring to see if things have been done the way we want us to do. So here we say do something. I'll do that. So save the string community. So the string community in variable substring. So you are encouraged to save your strings in variables, which is good programming practice. So that's what we want you to do going forward. What's going on? It's a reminder for an upcoming class. Okay, so we save this community in a variable called substring. Then we print out substring here. So next we print out substring. Print out text. Print out substring. So print out substring. So when you print out substring, that's what we get. Then you also here print out text. So we print out text. Yeah. Text like that. When you print text, so we've got two variables. We've got substring and text, which contain different things. Okay, so now we want to check. So do this. Want to do a check a bit. So check if the string stored in substring. Check if the string stored in substring. So whatever has been stored in substring is a member of, yeah. So whatever value we have stored in substring, we want to check if that is a member of text. So this here. So now we're using this. So text, substring in text. So we're using variables. So whatever is in substring and it turns out to be true. So basically that's the same thing. Here again, we check. So here is our texts. One of Python's strengths is its diverse and supportive community. So we have now here we check for friends. Check if substring friend is in text. If you do this, we know that there's no friend here. If you just look, one of Python's strengths is its diverse and supportive community. There's nothing about friends there. So friends in text, you expect to get a false. In this case, you get a false. So this is basically how you can do that. Okay. Then where is that? Check the string. Okay, here, copy this, then take it down. So next I'll say save the string friend in the variable that. So we do that, save. So that is saved. Then next we print out substring. Yeah, I'll print out substring. Then next we print out text. Print out text. Yeah, so we print out text, that's what it is. Then we check again substring in text. So we do a check. if the value which is stored in substring, now substring all the way down. Check yourself. Okay. Check if the string stored in substring. So now substring contains the string friends. So substring in text there, that gives you false. Okay, so here we're doing a check also for language. If you print out language, so here, if I do that, I think I need to do a print out of language. Got language, so I print it. So that's Python, that's language. Now I'm checking if language is in text. If you do that, this gives you true. So this is how you find out if a particular substring or a particular string is actually another string by using the in. So if it's there, then you get a true. If it's not there, then you get a false. Are we clear on how you check if a particular string is in a string, is in another string? Checking for membership. Is it clear? Hello? Okay, I need responses. Don't just keep quiet. If I ask a question, say, "Are you clear?" Then I need people to tell me if they're clear or not. Okay.
We are following.
No, don't just follow. Respond. Then the other thing about strings is that as much as they are similar to lists, but strings are not lists, so there are differences. Okay. One of the differences about a string and a list is that you cannot modify an element or a character in a string. You can't just say in this string at this index you want to change something. You're not allowed to do that. So strings are immutable. You are not allowed to change or modify strings. However, if you have a string which you have stored in a variable, if you want to make changes, then you have to make the whole change. So like, for example, we have got this string which is stored in language, that's Python. Then if you access the first character in the string language, the first character in that string is P. Now, if you want to change the P to a C, what we did with lists is you mention the name of the list, then followed by some square brackets. Then inside the square brackets, you'd put an index. So in this case, the index is 0. Then followed by an equal sign. And after that, on the other side of the equal sign, you would put the value you want to replace at that particular location. When you try to do this with a string, this is not going to work. Because when it comes to a string, you are not allowed. Basically, strings are like tuples. You are not allowed to modify a value or a character in that particular string. So in this case, our effort to try to change the P, which is in the string language, to a C is not going to work out. When you do this, when you try to run that, this is what you get. You get a type error. In this type error, you're given an explanation of what went wrong. It says, String object does not support item assignment. So you are not allowed to modify a string object. You are not allowed to modify a string object. There's the other kind of modification you can try to make, for example, I think is a deletion. If you can try to delete, let me see if that one works. So try to delete. So here we'll say okay, paste. So here we're going to say we'll try to delete, instead of trying to change, try deleting. We'll try deleting the first character in the string language. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but we can always find out quickly. So in this case, you say delete, then language, then you want to delete the first character. When you try to do this, let's see if it runs again. Here, string object does not support item deletion. So basically, these are the same properties which a tuple has. A tuple does not allow you to modify an element. It also does not allow you to delete an element. And a string also happens to have the same things. You're not allowed to delete an element or a character from a string. You're also not allowed to modify a character from a string. Are we clear?
Yes, we are clear.
Yes. So strings work like tuples. Okay? They don't allow item assignments. They also don't allow deletion. If you want to do something, you basically have to change everything. So in this case, we are going to give our string, our string language, we're going to give it a new thing. That's the same thing you do with a tuple. You just give it a new tuple. So in this case, we're going to give it a new string. And that string you're going to give it is something called Python. Like that. Then you print language now, then you get your Python. That's how these things work. So strings are very close to tuple. They behave like tuples, where there is no modification you're not allowed to do, and at the same time also you're not allowed to delete characters from a string. If you want to change things, you have to change the whole thing. Are we clear? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other thing you can do is changing of case. This is another modification you can do. You can change the case, and changing of cases is done using something called string methods. Now, string methods, or a method, is a function which only works on a specific type of objects. So in this case, the functions we're going to look at, these are functions which are used to modify only strings. Because these functions are used to modify only strings, they are different from the print function. Print, you can print a string, you can print a number, you can print out of a list, you can print a tuple, you can print a dictionary, as we have seen. So a function like print accepts everything. That's why they're called functions. But functions which only work with specific types of data are what you call methods. So a method is also used differently. So you need to start with the name of the string, or the name of the list, or the name of the dictionary. Then you put a dot followed by the name of the method. So the first method you're going to look at is what is called title. So the title method is used to change the first letter of each word in a string into a capital letter. That's what the title method is used for. It changes the first letter of each word in a string into a title. So here we're going to create a string called president, and the name we're going to keep there is Levi Mwanawasa. May his soul rest in peace. Yeah, but he was one of my favorites, as much as people didn't like him a lot. So we're going to keep his name in this variable called president. And when you do that, okay, we've done that, and if you print out president, this is what we get. So we get Levy, which starts with small letters, everything small letters, and Manawasa, everything small letters. Now, if we invoke the title method, so we start with, how do you use a method? You start with the name of the object. In this case, the object is a string, and that string is president. So president, then you put a dot, then later on the title. This like this. So in this case, when you do that, then you run this. This is what you see. You see the L has been capitalized, the M has also been capitalized. When previously it was just small letters like that. If you print out president again without title, that's what you get. You actually discover that the president itself was not modified. So what title did was it looked at president, then it found Levi Manawasa there, then it made a copy of Levi Manawasa, then it capitalized every word. So the first letter of his word was capitalized here, then the M here in Manawasa was also capitalized. So that's what it does. So methods like title, they actually modify a copy and not the data itself. If we want a permanent change to president, the way president is going to look, then when method does its thing, which is to produce this, so we say president.title, then this is produced, then you have to store this result back into president. So this bit is going to produce that. So this part, president.title will produce this. Then you have to store that back in the variable president. When you do that, then the changes which we made are going to be permanent now, like that. So when you do this, now you end up with this. Are we clear? So title makes temporal changes. If you want to make the changes permanent, you need to save the saved changes back into the variable in question. Is this clear? Okay, the next method you're going to look at is upper. The upper method changes every letter.
Not clear, sir.
Ati?
I'm not clear.
Where are you not clear? Which number? There is 44 here, there is 45, there is 46. Sorry? Where are you not clear? 43. This one. So you say you start with president and you put a dot, then capital, title. So this changes the first letter of every word in this string into a capital letter. Title always changes the first letter of every word in the string into a capital letter. So it makes a copy of whatever president is, then in that copy the first letter is modified into a capital letter. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Next we move on to upper. If you look at president, so that's what it is. If you say president.upper, this is going to change every letter which is not a capital letter. If a letter is already capital, it's going to be left, but every letter which is not a capital letter will be changed into a capital letter. So here, so you end up with this. If you look at president again, you see that it has not been changed. So the actual president itself remains unchanged. So what was actually changed was the copy. So in this case, also upper made a copy of president, then it looked at every letter. If the letter was not capital, it made it a capital letter. So if you want this change to be permanent, when you do this, president.upper, this is what you get. This is a result of president.upper. Then this result, you store it back in president like this. So when you do that, then you run president, you find that the change has been effected. So now president Levi Manawasa is all in capital letters. The method lower does the opposite. It makes all letters which are not small letters, turns them into small letters. So here we have president, like that. Then if you say president at lower, This is what it does. So it changes every letter, which is a capital letter, into a small letter. If you look at president again, president is still very much in capital letters. So if you want these changes to be permanent, you have to say president at lower, then the change, this president at lower is this one. So this changed Levi Monowasa in small letters, you store it back in president, that's what you get. Then if you print out president, that's what you get, like that. Okay, so that is how you change the casing of a string. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, we move on to how to combine Python strings. Combining or concatenating Python strings. So this combining or concatenation of Python strings is done using the plus sign. So here I create a variable, face name, in which I store Levi. Then I create the last name, Monowasa, last name, like that. Then I add them. I want to create a variable called full name. So I can add first name, then plus, using plus, then I put a space, then I add another plus, then last name, like this. Then whatever the result is, I store the result in full name. Like that. Now I print out full name. This is what I get. So I've combined Levi and Monowasa. Now I can say hello, Levi Monowasa, the full name, but I want the letters L and M to be in capital letters. I'm going to say hello, full name, then dot capital, like that. So when I do that, this is what I get. Hello, Levi Monowasa. I can store this whole thing here where I'm doing the concatenation. I can store it in another variable, the hello, plus full name, like that. This whole thing I can store it in a variable called message. Then I can print out message. That I still get that. Hello, Levi Monowasa. Are we clear? So you can actually add strings. If you have a string which is stored in a variable and another string in a variable, you can add them. Then you're also allowed to even include spaces in your addition. So like here, I added a space here. Then at the end here also, I also added an exclamation mark. So you can add spaces and also punctuation when you're combining strings. So this is what is known as string concatenation. So it's also a very useful thing to learn how to do. Are we clear on how you add strings or combine strings? You use the plus sign. And also a space is considered to be a character. So you can add spaces. And punctuations are also considered to be characters. Are we clear? Hello? Is it clear on what you have done with addition? It's very clear? Okay. Next, we move on to how to add spaces. How to add spaces, or in computers programming, we call them white spaces. How to add white spaces to Python strings. How do you add white spaces to Python strings? Okay. So there are a bunch of white spaces which you can add. For example, you can add a tab. The way we add a tab is by using this character combination here. The character combination we use for tab is this one. \t. Using a \t. If you do \t, then you add a tab. By doing a \t. Okay. So I'm going to print Python here. When I print Python like that, so this is where it's printed. Okay. But if I put a \t in front of it, like this, I put a \t in front of the Python, it's going to be printed in a different location. So it's going to be printed here. Without the backslash t in front, the Python is printed here. With the backslash t in front, the Python is printed here. If you decide not to include the backslash, because the backslash is very important here. If you forget to include the backslash, you just put the t, this is what you get. You get t Python. So the backslash is very important. It tells the computer to say, oh, this backslash t does the tab thing. And what do we mean by tab? You can see there's space in front there, that blue bar. That is the space which is in front. That's what represents a tab. A tab represents 4 spaces. Okay, you can put 2 backslash t's in front. So this one is going to be the first tab, then the other backslash t is going to represent the second tab. So if you do that, then your Python is printed there, and you can check in front here. See, there's all that space which is there. So 2 tabs, 8 spaces. Okay, so that's how you add a tab when you're doing Python thing. We add a tab by doing backslash t. The other kind of white space you can add is what you do when you press the enter key. When you're typing, then you press enter. That's what's known as end of line character. Okay, and how do we add an end of line character? We do that by using backslash n. So in this case, we'll print out these languages, Python, C, JavaScript, like that. So you send print languages like this. When you do this, is there a question?
Yes, sir.
What's the question?
What to happen if we put the 2 backslash before t?
What to happen if what?
If we put 2 backslashes there,
Where? Which line?
before t,
If you put before what? Which line? There's line 65, line 66, line 67. Which line are you talking about?
or line 60,
Line what?
65, line 65.
Okay, line 65 is this one. So what are you asking?
If we put 2 backslashes there before t,
Before T, which T? This one? That T?
no, the first t,
The first T?
yeah,
No, you put one T. You put, it's 1 slash, you put, it's 1 slash, backslash and T. You can try that on your own when you have got time, but if you want to add a tab, this is what you do. You can try to see, to do what happens. If you put 2 backslashes on, this is what you get. So the thing doesn't work. It just prints out backslash t. So if you put another backslash in front of this thing, you end up printing the backslash t, and that's not what you want. Okay? What you want is this. When you do backslash t, you want this to happen. So if you put another backslash there, then the backslash t is not going to do what it does. So in front of a backslash something, if you put another slash in front of that, then that thing is not going to work. Are we clear? So here we print out languages. Then after that you have got Python, C, JavaScript. Now what we want is these languages things to be on their separate lines. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Ati? Who's disturbing who?
No, I mean, because for students, I don't have to learn.
So what do you want me to do?
No, I'm just asking if you can be that side.
Who?
Me with the students.
I'll go that side. Why are you asking me?
Oh, no, I thought I would disturb them.
Okay. Okay, next, so if you want to print these things on different lines, so what we do is, I want this languages thing to be on a separate line. So after languages, I put a backslash n. I want Python to be on a separate line, then after that, I put a backslash n. I want C to be on a separate line, then after that, I put backslash n. So when I do that, this is the result I get. I get languages, here, like that. Then Python on a separate line, so the languages itself on a separate line, Python on a separate line, C on a separate line, JavaScript on a separate line. So this is how you end up creating an output which is on different lines using \n. Okay. Next, you can combine the \n and \t's. So the n is going to start a new line, then the \t is going to do the tab business. So if you combine them like this, the result is going to be a bit different. So when you do run this is what you get. So you get languages, then instead of the Python starting at the beginning here, because of the \t, it's going to start here. The same applies to the C. Instead of starting at the beginning there, it starts somewhere there, and the JavaScript like that. Are we clear? Is it clear?
Yes, it's clear, sir.
Okay. The other thing you can do is, apart from adding white spaces to a Python string, you can actually remove white spaces from a Python string. So apart from adding these white spaces, you can actually remove them. So if a string has got white spaces, then you can remove these white spaces from a Python string using a method called strip. Strip, this R stands for right strip. So it removes the white spaces on the right. Then this L strip means left strip. It removes white spaces on the left of a string. Then there's this one strip. Strip removes white spaces on the left and then the right at the same time. So let's see how it works. So here I create a variable language, then I do this. I create this string. So this is Python but written differently. So you can see here there's a bunch of spaces there. So let me see. You can say 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 spaces that side. Then I can add more spaces this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a string with 4 spaces before it, then the Python, then 4 spaces like that. So that is a string on its own. So if you display that, so this is what you see. So this is a string with a space this side and another space that side. If you want to get rid of the space on the right only, which is this side, you're going to say language.rstrip. So this is going to remove the space which is on the right. So this space which was this side goes. This space. It gets removed. So you end up with only Python like that. But this other space which was this side remains. Again, this thing works on the copy. Okay? If you try to display, I think, let's see if the change is permanent. Language. If you display language, you find that the language is still very much the same. So these changes which are being made by rstrip are not permanent. Okay. If you want to display or remove space on the right, so this is language. If you want to remove space on the on the left, this side, so you're going to say language.leftStrip. When you do that, this is what you get. So this side remains. Then you get your language like that. If you want to remove spaces both on the left and on the right, if that's what you want to do, then you have to use strip. So language, we do that. So you see the space which was before and after have been removed. And if you language, that's still the same. If you want the changes to be permanent, of course, you know what to do. You need to save the changed thing. You need to save the changed stuff back into language. Like this. So if you want to permanently change language, you do that. Then you display language. So here we'll say permanently strip the spaces. say permanently strip of spaces from language. So that's what it does. If that's what you want to do. Now when you do that, next when you try to display language, the modified language without spaces, if you do language, did you run this? How does that make sense? Strip. I don't know why it's not working. And clearly maybe there's something to do with modification. Okay, I don't know exactly why it's not working the way I suspect it could have worked, but clearly there's more to this than meets the eye. Or if I make let me say strip language. If I do this, does it work or not? No. Okay. Something does not seem to work. Yeah. All right. Any questions apart from this last part? I'll try to find out why the last part is like that. Any questions?
No question.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to. I don't understand why. Because it's supposed to do this. I think. Then why is it not? Yeah, that. Then. If I say tripped. Language. Okay, I don't know why it wasn't working, but now it works. Okay, so that is if you want to make changes to that permanently. Okay, so if there are no questions, we end here for today. Tomorrow we're going to look at how to format. There's some other things you can do. So tomorrow we're going to look at how to make some formatting to strings. That is at 15 hours. Okay, I'll stop the recording here and the sharing. The video will be uploaded.